I find it very difficult to follow the acute and comprehensive speech just made by the Noble Baroness Lady Ritchie of Downpatrick, in which she covers a wide range of detailed issues relevant to this topic. I will only say that I think the questions she raises are extremely important, and I hope that the Minister will be able to give comprehensive answers to them, if not today, then appropriately in writing in due course. I find myself a little bit like her, slightly a fish out of water in this particular debate, because although, unlike her, I would very much like to ride pillion on a motorcycle, my one experience of doing so when I was a teenager was so terrifying that I've never actually repeated it, and that has been my sole exposure to riding a motorcycle ever since then. Maybe as I move into my dotage, I will take up riding pillion, but I don't bring that particular experience. What I do have experience of, though, is working with people who are transport policy professionals. And when I started working in the field of transport, when I was involved both as a local councillor and then later with Transport for London, I was surprised at the comprehensive hostility of the transport policy professionals towards the motorcycle sector, which they dignify with the name powered two-wheelers, a bizarre distortion of the English language, or even sort of, Category L vehicles. But I'm going to, in my few minutes I'm going to take your time, I'm going to refer to them as motorcycles generally, because I think that is a word that more people understand. And they are very hostile to them. Any suggestion that there should be a privilege for them, any suggestion that there should be special provision, special provision for push bikes, that's absolutely all right, but nothing at all to do with motorcycles. Any suggestion like that is pushed back. Now, part of the reason is to do with their safety record, because it is true that if you are riding on a motorcycle and you're travelling at speed and you come off, you're more likely to injure yourself than in other circumstances. And so that is part of the reason. It contributes to poorer road safety figures. But I think it is also worth bearing in mind that motorcycles probably do less harm to other road users in collisions than cars do. And when we look at the road safety figures, we don't always sufficiently take account of the fact that making it safer for a motorist to drive a car often transfers risk to people who are not in the car, that is, to pedestrians and others who are using the road, because it encourages slightly riskier behaviour on the part of the motor car driver. That doesn't happen with motorcyclists, as one sees them dashing through the traffic. There's also a sense in which the market, or if you like, is getting ahead of the definitions which the department uses. It used to be clear what was a car and what was a motorcycle, and what was a push bike. But we now have all sorts of intermediate vehicles which are creating a sort of merger between what are different modes of transport, but now increasingly hard to distinguish. So we have e-scooters, which are encouraged by the department, at least to the extent that trials have been authorised in certain places. No final decision has been taken, but trials have been authorised in certain places to allow e-scooters to be looked at. We have electric push bikes, so assisted push bikes to help you up the hill, and so on. And so we're getting this merger of typologies. And indeed, even into the motor car sector, you now see tiny cars that are basically little more than sort of tricycles with a vacuum cleaner engine attached to them going through the streets. But the department sticks to what are very, very old typologies that are being, I think, set to one side. Now, in pursuit of that, the government has its non-zero motorcycle, a net zero, its target, as the Noble Baroness said, of non-zero motorcycles by 2035, subject to consultation. I often wonder when it is the Conservative Party which is the heir to the Cavaliers adopted a Puritan agenda. And even if one actually accepts that the large-scale destruction of much of our economic capacity is justified by the very serious threats of climate change, it is a net zero target, not an absolute zero target. That is, it is accepted that there is going to be some carbon emissions going ahead. Given the very small contribution that this sector makes to our overall zero emissions, could my noble friend perhaps say, when he answers, that he is willing to cut this sector some slack?